This is the tragic case of Annie Lee, the girl who was killed and crushed into a wall on her wedding day. Annie Lee was born on July 3, 1985, in San Jose, California. She grew up in a big, close-knit family and was described as kind, caring, and always willing to help others. She has also said to be very vibrant, always smiling, and had an infectious laugh. At school, Annie was an exceptional student who graduated at the top of her class in high school and was voted as the most likely to be the next Einstein. After receiving $160,000 in scholarship money, Annie got her undergraduate degree in cell-developmental biology from the University of Rochester in New York. It was while here that she met and fell in love with Jonathan Widawsky, a fellow student who is majoring in physics and mathematics. Annie described him as her best friend, and before long, the two were engaged and preparing for their wedding. They set their wedding date for September 13th, 2009. Tragically, Annie would not live to see it. As her fiancé went to Columbia University for his doctorate, Annie was accepted into the prestigious Yale University in 2007, where she was hoping to earn her doctorate in pharmacology. According to Yale, Annie's research involved enzymes that could help treat serious diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and muscular dystrophy. She was also very active on campus and had even written an article about campus safety titled Crime and Safety in New Haven for Yale Medical School's B magazine. In the article, she interviewed the police chief at Yale about the ways that students could keep safe and avoid becoming another statistic. Little did she know that she would become one herself. Tuesday, September 8, 2009 was a busy day for Annie, who was juggling between school and wedding preparation. She left her apartment early that morning and took Yale Transit to her office at the Sterling Hall of Medicine on the Yale campus. She was there until around 10 a.m. Then she walked from Sterling Hall to another campus building at 10 Amistad Street, where her research laboratory was located, and surveillance cameras captured her entering the building just after 10 a.m. She would never come out alive. That evening, one of Annie's roommates started getting worried when she didn't come home. She tried calling her multiple times, but Annie was not picking up, which was totally unusual. Afraid that something bad might have happened to her, her friend called the police. At first, the police thought that they were dealing with a case of a runaway bride who had just gotten cold feet a few days before her wedding, but that did not make any sense because her purse, credit cards, and cell phone were all still in her office at Sterling Hall. Also, her family and friends said that Annie was really excited and looking forward to her wedding. So there was no way she could have run away. As the police retraced Annie's steps, they learned that she had entered the research center at Amistad Street at 10:09 a.m. Her electronic key card for the day showed that her card was used to get into the lab at 10:11 a.m. Then after that, nothing. However, 3 hours later, something weird happened. Someone seemed to have triggered the fire alarm and the whole building was evacuated, but there was no sign of Annie in the crowd. Investigators sealed off the entire building as a crime scene and began an all-out search for clues as to Annie's whereabouts. After 4 days of searching, investigators got a break in the case. A red stained shirt that looked a lot like the one Annie had been wearing in the surveillance footage, and it was found in the ceiling just outside the lab. On top of that, investigators also found red-stained rubber gloves, a sock, and a work boot labeled Ray C. They also found red stains in the lab rooms that someone had attempted to clean, but still, there was no sign of Annie. On September 13, 2009, one investigator noticed a foul smell emitting from the basement. The cadaver dogs were immediately brought in, and around 5 p.m., the same time Annie was supposed to be walking down the aisle at her wedding, her mangled body was found, stuffed upside down inside a wall in the lab. But who was her killer, and why? An autopsy conducted by the Connecticut medical examiner found that Annie had died from traumatic asphyxia due to neck compression. It was later reported that the killer had broken her bones in order to fit her through the wall opening, which was the size of a computer screen. There were also signs that she had been violated before she was killed. The horrific discovery shook the entire Yale community, who could not understand how something so horrible could happen on a campus ground. Was there a killer in their midst?
Having heard that Ray Clark is in the hands of the authorities, I guess I'm more relieved that there is at least a suspect. Obviously, he hasn't gone through trial, so we don't know for sure yet. But at least, there is somebody who's, of interest.
The primary thing that's been going through my mind the past couple of days is just how the people that are directly involved, Annie's family, her fiancé, and her close friends at the medical school, how they must feel. In terms of the arrest that's being made, I feel relieved, and I know that Yale has been progressing quickly with everything, and I think it's another step that's being made to close the case. I generally feel that the entire campus relief is going to be the general emotion.
Even though I didn't know her personally, I can definitely imagine, if that were to have happened to one of my family members or one of my friends, or, even to me, I would be, it's devastating.
A day that was supposed to be filled with joy and celebration was now dark and gloomy for Annie's loved ones, especially her fiancé, Jonathan. Instead of celebrating a wedding, both Annie and Jonathan's families had two separate memorial services for her, one in California and another one in Huntington, New York. Her funeral was broadcasted live on the internet and was attended by over 600 people, including Jonathan and his family.
We're supposed to share the happiness of our children. I look forward to meet you and any friend. John, even now, Annie is gone, but I still have you and love you very much, like my son, Christopher.
I think that I speak on behalf of all of us gathered here when I say that I will never fully understand why this has happened or what happened to my sister. But since those questions are beyond our understanding, I think it is best to consign ourselves to the will of God and put faith in providence.
Meanwhile, investigators were working around the clock to find the person behind the brutal killing, and within a few days, they made their arrest. So, who was this Raymond Clark III, and how did he get here? According to those who knew him, Raymond, also known as Ray, was a quiet, friendly, and a popular guy who played baseball in high school and volunteered in homeless shelters. He started working at Yale as a lab technician in 2004, and according to his supervisor, he never got into any trouble. Investigators said that they started suspecting Ray even before they found Annie's body, when they saw him cleaning the lab even when it had already been cleaned. When they asked him about Annie, he claimed he saw her leaving the research building at around 12:45 on September 8th, but did not interact with her. During the interview, the police noticed that Ray had some scratches on his face and left bicep. And when they asked him about it, he claimed that he had been scratched by one of his cats. Investigators, of course, asked him to provide samples of his DNA. And sure enough, the police got a match, and not just one match, but his DNA was reportedly in over 250 pieces of evidence, including those found near Annie's body. Police also discovered that Ray was the only person in the lab with Annie that morning, and that he was the one that accidentally triggered the fire alarm with his or Annie's keycard as he was trying to cover his tracks. When the police searched his apartment, they found red stains in his kitchen that later matched Annie's DNA. After this, Ray was immediately arrested and charged with Annie's murder. But what was his motive, and why did he kill Annie?
New Haven police have made an arrest in the killing of a Yale University graduate student, Annie Lay. Raymond Clark, a lab technician at the university, was taken into custody this morning, and his bond has been set at $3 million. ABC News Radio's Aaron Katersky is in New Haven and now joins me on the phone with the details. Aaron, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
TJ, good morning from the New Haven Police Department, where the man charged with murder, Raymond Clark, has just arrived, driven here in a black car, went into the police headquarters just moments ago.
Aaron, what kind of evidence does the New Haven Police Department supposedly have on Clark at this point?
Well, the police chief wouldn't say specifically, wouldn't talk about the specific case against him, but we know they've been waiting for forensic test results. They wanted to compare samples of Raymond Clark's DNA from his hair, mouth, and skin.
Although Ray never really said why he did it, there are a few theories going around trying to explain his actions. The first theory is that Ray and Annie had a relationship, and when she tried to break up with him, he snapped and killed her. And this was actually not his first case of violence. According to his high school girlfriend, Ray got so violent when she tried to break up with him that she had to involve the police. However, this theory was debunked by Annie's friends and Ray's fiancée, who wrote on her blog that it was the most stupid thing she had ever heard. The second theory is that Ray was obsessed with Annie, who was not interested in him. When he made a pass at her and she rejected him, he killed her. Some reports say that he even had texted Annie to meet him at the lab that morning. There is also a third theory that Ray was a control freak at work, and he hated it when Annie left the lab without cleaning after her research. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Ray at first pleaded not guilty to the crime. Then he changed and pleaded guilty in exchange for 44 years in prison instead of 60. He also got another 20 years for the charge of assault. Both sentences will run concurrently, meaning that he will be 68 years old when he gets out. What do you think was Ray's motive for killing Annie? Let me know about your thoughts in the comment section below.